Can Andrew Huberman save my running?
Cut. Too dramatic.
Help my running?
Punchier.
Can Andrew Huberman make me a better runner?
All right.
By now you've probably heard of Andrew Huberman, the neurobiologist with the bushy beard and massive shoulders who's become one of the most famous podcasters in the world. His podcast, Huberman Lab, delivers, what is it?
Science and science-based tools for everyday life.
Right. So things like going for a 30-minute walk in the morning, or eating a low-carb lunch to avoid an afternoon crash. And all these tips put together supposedly improve your brain function, help you sleep better, and even increase your levels of dopamine. So at no point during Huberman's podcast does he claim that these methods should make you a faster runner. But a couple months ago I decided that I would give them a try just to see what happens. And this is why I got onto this. I consider myself a sub-elite runner, which means that I can finish a race fast enough to still see the Olympians and the professionals in the finishing area drinking their Gatorade. Like, I'll usually get the high five and the,
"Oh, you're that Alex guy, right?"
That's as close as I get. And what separates me from them, other than maybe a crippling lack of talent, is that I'm injured all the time. Stress fractures, tendinitis, you name it, I've gotten it. And lately I started wondering, is it more than just little problems with my training and biomechanical issues? Is there something else that I can fix that would make me a better runner? And recently I started wondering if it might be stress. If I can get my stress down, if I could improve my sleep, perhaps I'll get rid of my injuries. So that's when the Huberman plan came into my mind. I thought,
why don't I just try this and see what happens?
So I started imitating Huberman in every aspect of my life. Nutrition, training, sleep, relationships.
Ugh, I hope you held off on that third one.
Relationships? Why? What happened?
You not see that New York Mag story? Huberman had 5 girlfriends at a time.
5? Well, okay, let's wrap this up then. No video.
What do you mean?
Yeah, we gotta cancel this. We can't endorse him.
Yeah, we're not endorsing his entire life, just the fitness stuff. You can celebrate someone's good work even if you don't agree with the less rosy parts of their personality.
Can we though?
Oh, your generation. Just stick to the Daily Blueprint.
Okay. So we just stuck with Huberman's Daily Blueprint, which is his everyday routine, all published on a downloadable PDF on his website that altogether carries the promise of enhanced dopamine, better brain function, and improved sleep. All right, I said let's give it a go. Now, spoiler, none of it is rocket science. These are probably all little tools that your mom told you to do as a kid. It's free, accessible, easy. So I followed it for a month, and I'll let you know how it went. First, I'll break down what the routine actually is so that you get an idea of what my days look like, and after that, we'll get into some results. The plan begins right when you wake up in the morning, and it doesn't really matter when that is. Huberman wasn't a stickler for a 5:30 a.m. wake-up time or anything like that. What he says is important, though, is that you try to keep your wake-up time consistent from day to day. So I tend to be a morning person, so for me, that was 6:30 a.m. The first thing to do when you wake up is to go for a 10 to 30-minute walk outside. And there's 2 reasons for this. Exposure to sunlight apparently quiets activity in your amygdala, which is the brain center that processes fear. Early exposure to sunlight also primes your body to release more serotonin later in the day, which apparently leads to better sleeps. Now, I'm someone who likes to move early in the morning, so that part of the routine came pretty naturally to me. Now, the second part of the morning routine really took me out of my comfort zone because it was more grounded in meditation and breath work, and those are just things that I don't really have any experience with. So immediately after the walk, Huberman recommends you take 5 minutes to do 25 deep inhales and exhales, and then hold at the end for 30 seconds with empty lungs. And he recommends that because it supposedly stimulates your autonomic nervous system, which increases your focus later in the day. Now, the third part of the morning routine was by far the hardest for me. No caffeine for the first 90 minutes after waking. And the reason for that is that caffeine increases your cortisol levels, so the stress hormone. And naturally, our bodies don't produce much cortisol first thing in the morning. So the idea is, if you have a whole lot of caffeine and secrete a whole lot of cortisol, you might run out in the afternoon and crash. Now, there's an exception to that. Huberman allows people who work out in the morning to have a coffee first thing in the morning to benefit from that little boost during their workout. But otherwise, you have to wait 90 minutes. So my mornings ended up looking a bit like this. I'd wake up at 6:30, go for my 30-minute walk, do my 5 minutes of breath work, and then catch up on tasks for about an hour, and then have breakfast and coffee at around 8 or 8:30. And the last tip he leaves you with is to have 1 or 2 bottles of water before lunch. And if you've also had your coffee, pro tip, be close to a bathroom. Moving on to phase 2, midday. And you'll notice that a lot of the recommendations inside of this time block have to do with food, because it's usually around that time that we have our biggest meals of the day. So the first recommendation Huberman leaves us with is to have a low-carb lunch followed by a 15-minute walk to avoid the afternoon crash. And I didn't realize it, but it's tough to eat low-carb in America. We're conditioned to have big carb portions with every meal, whether that's noodles or rice or potatoes. So what I didn't really change the types of foods that I had, I just rearranged my portions. So a typical lunch for me ended up being a plate divided in 3, between a protein, so chicken or fish, vegetables, and then a carb, so that's noodles or rice. Huberman recommends an exercise period in this phase, if people haven't already worked out in the morning. And that makes sense to me because, as far as I'm concerned, when you're working out, you want to avoid 2 pitfalls. One is to work out right after a meal, because that usually doesn't feel very good. And then 2 is to work out right before sleep, because then it's hard to wind down afterwards. So I kept doing what I usually do, which is run at 4 p.m., gives me about 3 or 4 hours to digest after lunch, and I just feel that it fits well in my day with work. So I stuck with what was comfortable there. And then dinner, where Huberman recommends complex carbohydrates and protein-rich foods. So that would be, for example, steak and sweet potatoes, or salmon, rice, and vegetables. And the reason for that is that complex carbs take a long time to digest, as opposed to, say, candy, that would just supercharge you with energy and potentially prevent you from sleeping. And then it's phase 3, bedtime and sleeping. And apparently that's where I needed the most work, because my pre-bedtime routine was pretty weak. So I would watch TV, answer text messages, and sometimes just scroll through reels until I got tired. And apparently you're supposed to do the complete opposite. Huberman recommends no screens for the hour or 2 hours before bed, and to substitute that with reading. And reading works super well. This book in particular put me to sleep in no time.
Don't disrespect Hemingway.
And then 2 more things to promote a deep sleep. He recommends that you lower the temperature in your room by 1 to 3 degrees, and that you do a few psychological sighs before bed. So let's do it together. It's 1 big breath in, top up when you're holding all your breath, and then big exhale. Repeat that 3 times to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system and induce calmness, and that's it. Okay, so before I get into the results, this is what I really liked and appreciated about the Daily Blueprint. It didn't ask me to do anything wacky or weird, didn't make me change my lifestyle in a drastic way, and it didn't ask me to buy anything strange. These were just very simple concepts, tweakings of my everyday life in tiny ways that after a couple weeks I barely even noticed anymore. So that was nice. But did it work? After just 3 days, I noticed 2 major changes. One was that my afternoon crashes were gone. So as a morning person, I tend to be really lethargic in the afternoon. Between 1 and 4, don't email me because I'm not in my right mind. It's like the worst and lowest part of my day. That actually went away. It felt like a reverse hangover, giving me energy throughout the entire day, and I found my afternoons to be a lot more productive. And at their best, I would get to my workout time at 4 feeling recharged and energized and then ready to tackle the workout. So that was nice. The second thing that changed really quickly was my sleep. So I would usually sleep 7 hours a night, sometimes a little bit less. And then now, on the Huberman plan, I would get tired earlier. So instead of going to sleep at 11:30 and waking up at 6:30, I'd go to sleep at 10:30 or even 10 and then wake up the next morning at the same time. So I started just feeling more rested as the days went by. Now, sleep alone will not improve your running times or get rid of all your injuries. But I did find that it prepared my body better from one day to the next and prevented it from breaking down. And sleep is good for a bunch of other things, right? Improves tissue recovery, lowers inflammation, and can even enhance mood sometimes. I felt like an enhanced version of myself. So with all that said, did the Huberman method help me get rid of my injuries and make me a better runner? No. I actually got injured again while on the plan, which solidified something for me. It made me remember that the Huberman method is great, but it's not a panacea, and it's certainly not a stand-in for an appointment with the physiotherapist or having someone check out your underlying biomechanical issues. But I do think that it's a valuable add-on, and it might help you recover faster. Anything that improves your sleep, I think, is worth a look, especially something that is minimally invasive, doesn't cost anything, and is actually pretty simple to do. So my take on the Huberman method, give it a try. It might help with your recovery, make you more productive in the afternoons, and that sleep might even give you a bit more patience for difficult people.
What?
Nothing. Do you plan to try the Huberman method? Or have you tried it already? Let us know how it went in the comments if so. And just remember, do not watch the videos next to me right before bed. But you can watch them any other time. And while you're at it, feel free to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Till next time.